Hello, everyone. It sure has been a while. I decided to take a sort of hiatus from the channel after the House of the Dragon season ended. If you've ever made video content covering an entire show season, you'll know you will get burnt out and you will want to stop making videos and it will feel like work by the end. But now that it's been like far removed from the season, I have some ideas that I've been wanting to do, and this one's very low effort, very easy. So I thought I'd jump into this. It's something I've been meaning to get to for a while. This is a tier list of all of the A Song of Ice and Fire characters. Now, I'm sure they do not really have all of them, simply because there are, like hundreds of named characters, so I don't think that's what this situation is here today. I've avoided doing this until now partially because there hasn't really been a good comprehensive tier list out there. There's been one of show characters, there's been ones of just book characters, but the art was too nondescript for me to tell who was who and there was no labels. This one is perfect because not only does it have art, it has labels for every single character. And I think they use some show images, some fan art, and I think that's really, really cool. So I thought, hey, let's actually sit down and do this. Now, I'm doing the rankings a little different, just to break down what I'm ranking by. So obviously the top is best in all of fiction, which means these are some of the best characters ever written in the entire medium of fiction, which A Song of Ice and Fire happens to have multiple, so... That's probably why I love it so much. High tier, some of the best characters. They don't really peak that top level, but, mid tier, average. Low tier, kind of bad, but whatever. I decided to make two different shit tiers, because there's a difference between characters that are so well written to be despicable and horrible people that you just despise them with every fiber of your being, and I think that deserves a different shit tier than a character that's poorly written. So I decided to divide this up. I don't know how many will end up in each, but between poorly written shit tier and incredibly written shit tier. And then, of course, there's the Who. There's obviously going to be background characters and very minor characters that I do not remember, so those will go there. And also, this is a tier list based on the books we have so far. It does not take show into account, and it does not take speculation from further books into account. It is only the characters and what they have done so far in the story. So... without further ado, let's jump in. Aegon the First Targaryen is gonna be something... It's gonna be one of those characters that I'm going to naturally... Like, historical figures are gonna tend to fall in, mid-tier to the point, if they're intriguing and they have very interesting backstories, I'll put them in mid-tier simply because we don't get POVs of them, we don't get characters interacting with them, they're historical figures. And there's not really a way to discern their personalities in their writing, so I'm gonna say a lot of historical figures that are intriguing will go in mid-tier, and that's the kind of manner. Aemon Targaryen. Now, I believe this is Maester Aemon. The pictures are very tiny on my screen, but I believe this is supposed to be Maester Aemon. I see the Raven in the corner. Very good character, but I would not say one of my favorites. So I think also gonna go in mid-tier. Aeron Greyjoy. I don't like Aeron Greyjoy. The majority of the Greyjoy characters in the books are not likable at all, but I think Aeron Greyjoy, honestly, he's not incredibly written either, so I'm going to put him in low tier. Aerys II is a very intriguing character. There's a lot of mystery behind his insanity. He's Daenerys' father, so he helmed the whole Mad King trope. That kind of plagues Daenerys throughout the series. So he has very interesting, and of course Robert's Rebellion stemmed from his rule, so he has very interesting tendrils in the modern story, especially since he's such a recent figure, the king right before Robert. But also, again, we haven't seen him in action, so I'm going to go with mid-tier for that as well. Aggo? I'm sorry, I can't remember who that is. Alleras, very interesting character. 100% Solera Sand in disguise. I don't think that's a theory anymore. I talked about this in my theory tier list. I don't think that's a theory anymore. I think that's canon. It's the name backwards, for God's sakes. Anyway, and we know that Sarella went off to study somewhere, and of course this Alleras is a student at the Citadel. So it's pretty straightforward. Very intriguing character. I'm excited to see where they go in the story, but they haven't done much yet, which leaves me to put them in mid tier. Alistair Thorne, he's just an asshole. He's just such a dick. Sometimes he'll do things that you're like, okay, like I can kind of see like there's a little bit of good buried under this terrible exterior, but most of the time he's such an asshole. And I'm gonna put him in low tier. Alice Karstark. Is this the girl who ended up at the wall that they married to the Magnar of Fen? I think so. I'm going to say low tier because I don't remember pretty much anything about her character. I'll also say it has been like 5 or 6 years since my last reread of the series, so some stuff will be a little rusty, I have to admit. Archibald, is that supposed to be Ironwood, just condensed? Or is that Ironwood an actual thing? I don't remember who this is. Areo Hota, very interesting character. Very interesting choice for a POV in Dorne, I thought. It's really cool to see the perspective of someone that is not fully aware of the political machinations going on in Dorne, is not, royalty, which the majority of the characters in Dorne we follow are like somewhat tangential to royalty. So it's very interesting to see a character that has a different perspective from that. So, yeah, like, I'm going to put him in high tier, honestly. I really cherish his POVs. Speaking of Dorne, Arianne Martell, I'm excited to see where she goes in the story. Very excited, especially since she's going to treat with young Griff now, it seems like, in the early parts of Winds of Winter. So I'm very excited, like, especially if she becomes, like, young Griff's betrothed. That's going to be, like, an Rhaegar, oh my god, am I blanking? Oh my god, Rhaegar and Ilya kind of thing. Sorry, I like her name. So I'm very interested to see where she goes, but right now in the series, I'm going to have to put mid-tier. Arthur Dayne, again, very intriguing historical figure, but still historical, so mid-tier. Arya Stark, I'm going to be controversial here. She is a great, incredibly well-written character, but her POVs are kind of in my lower tier of POVs. A lot of interesting stuff happens, but I'm not really sure I like her perspective that much. And it's not that it's poorly written, it's incredibly written. But, it's something about it just kind of like, I never really get too attached to her perspective, though she's an incredible character. So I'm going to put her in high tier. Honestly, I'm tempted to put it in best of all fiction just because she is so incredibly written, but I just have to save it for like a few characters that deserve it, checking to make sure I'm still recording here. Yep, we're going good. Okay. Okay, next we have Aerys Oakheart. What a dumbass. I'm putting him in low tier. He's just a dumb guy. I don't think he had I think one POV chapter, and I think that was a mistake. And I think George, if I remember correctly, has expressed regretting that in the interview. I think that could have been an Arianne chapter. I don't think it needed to be an Aerys chapter. It was interesting to get his perspective on the situation in Dorne, but then again, we have a couple of Dorne POVs going right now. I don't think we needed him, so I'm putting him in low tier. Asha Greyjoy, Yara in the show, very interesting character. I'm just not the whole Greyjoy line kind of rubs me the wrong way, and that makes sense because a lot of them are just absolutely awful people, but some of them are redeemable. I feel like Theon has redeemability, Asha has redeemability, so I'm gonna have to put her in mid tier, I would say. Ashara Dayne, okay. This is one of those situations where I'm very tempted to put her in high tier, but because she's just a historical figure and we haven't really, here's the thing. I theorize that she's still alive in the books and is still, let's say, doing something a bit Cranig, I will say. That's all I'll get to, but that's my theory. However, the historical record is that she killed herself back during Robert's Rebellion. So I believe after Arthur died. So I'm gonna say mid tier just because historical. Araine Waters. Oh my god, why am I blanking on who Araine Waters is? Holy shit. You know what? I'm gonna put in who for now, but maybe if I have I remember, I'll come back to her. Balon Greyjoy, fucking asshole, piece of shit. Not poorly written though, but not incredibly written. So I'm gonna put him in low tier. Balon Swan. Yeah, I'm blanking on who Balon Swan is. I said I'm gonna be a little bit rusty since it's been 5 or 6 years since I reread the books. Barbary Dustin. Okay, she's the character that Ramsay first but when we first hear rumors about Ramsay and throughout the second book before he becomes an actual presence, we hear these rumors that he's off doing fucked up shit. I remember Barbary Dustin visited Winterfell and was concerned. I believe this was Barbary Dustin, and she was concerned that hey, my husband died. People are going to try to take my shit. Come protect me, Starks. And the Starks didn't do anything. And of course, Ramsay took her castle and trapped her in her quarters until she got so starved her until she ate her own hands. So very fucked up. I'm gonna say mid tier just because we know very little about her, but she's not poorly written in a sense. Barristan Selmy, very, very interesting character because he serves a really interesting role, and I feel the show did such a disservice eliminating him. It felt like they eliminated him just for the sake of clearing up how many characters they had to write, when he does such wonders for the Far Eastern Daenerys side of the story, because he comes from a historical perspective where he was present for all of the Westerosi events that serve the background of Daenerys' story, and now he's sort of integrating in these new events that are going to be historical in terms of Daenerys liberating Slaver's Bay, and also with the way he's taking charge while Daenerys is missing in Meereen currently is very interesting to follow. I think he was a good POV addition, so I'm going to say high tier. Also very, I don't know, honorable, but also made some mistakes. I feel characters like Ned, which I'll get to, are incredibly good people, very honorable, but almost to a T, where it's they don't really make any moral failings. While they make some stupid decisions, but they don't make any moral failings. Well, Barristan does have some moral failings, which I think makes him a very interesting character. Strong Belwas, kind of a comedic relief character, not really anything special, low tier. Benjen Stark, very intriguing character, we just haven't seen enough of him. For a while, I, of course, had the theory that he was Cold Hands, but I'm pretty sure George R. R. Martin explicitly said he's not Cold Hands. So Cold Hands is probably an agent of Bloodraven that's much more ancient. Maybe even one of Bloodraven's original accompaniers when he went beyond the wall, but who knows. But yeah, we just don't know enough about him. I hope we'll see him in the story again, but he could be someone that's been sort of written out. Beric Dondarrion. I love these arts because it's so different than you imagine it, because I watched the first few seasons of the show before I read the books, so I have an envision of the characters that do appear in the show totally different. So I like this art, to be honest, for that reason. Beric Dondarrion, very interesting character. Would I say I particularly fond of him? Not really. Would I say that he is not fun to read about? No. So I'll put him right in mid-tier. Big Walder Frey. Is that one of the shitty kids that Bran had to spend time... Shitty Frey kids that Bran had to spend time with in Clash of Kings? I think it is. I'm going to say low tier. Biter, that's one of the people, pretty filler character. It's one of the crazy people that was with Jack and Hagar on the way to the wall. I can't remember if he joins the Brave Companions or not. I'm a little rusty, but I'm going to say low tier. He is the one that bites off Brienne's face in Feast for Crows, right? I think so. Black Walder Frey, don't remember who that is. Bowen Marsh, Oh my god, the name. God, I recognize that name and I'm just blanking on who it is. God. You know what? Maybe I'll put some of these characters that I can't remember who they are at the bottom. So if I remember who they are as we go, I can sort of come back to them. Brandon Stark, Ned's older brother, died before the series. Interesting historical figure. Oh, you're seeing my chats. I thought I closed it. I did. I don't know why it's... can I mute it? You know what? I'm just going to mute the chat on my phone, and that should prevent it from popping up on the screen. The message notifications till... Sorry about that. That should help. Okay. Brandon Stark, you know, Ned's older brother died before the series, set a lot of Robert's Rebellion's activity in motion because he went to King's Landing to confront Mad King Aerys and was burned alive, and that was set a lot of the resentment that started Robert's Rebellion. So I'm going to say, but, you know, also just a historical figure. We don't really know anything about him. He was also who Catelyn was supposed to be betrothed. We know very little about his personality and mannerisms. I think all we get is, like, through Catelyn a little bit. So I'm going to actually say low tier, even though it's a historical figure. Brienne of Tarth, I'm going to say I'm tempted to put in best of all fiction. I love Brienne. She's such a good character. Her POVs in A Feast for Crows are a little stale, but her journey with Jaime and her like moral compass and the struggles and adversity she's had to overcome, she's just such a, you know, I'm going best of all fiction. Fuck it. Fuck it. I'm winning myself over with my arguments. Bronn, he's an asshole. He's done very little in the books comparatively, because the show made him a mean character and kept on giving him more and more of a bigger role, to the point where he did this like laughably huge role in season 8, and he was on King Bran's small council. I'm like, this is so ridiculous, but I'm going by the books. I'm going to say low tier just because he doesn't make much of a presence. Is Brynden Tully... Is that the Blackfish? Or is that... No, Hoster Tully is Catelyn's father. I think this is the Blackfish. And if it is the Blackfish, I'm going to say mid-tier. Interesting enough, we just don't know a lot about him. Catelyn Stark. Catelyn Stark's such an interesting character because we get her POV, and we also get her through Jon's POV. And I think it creates such a duality because in her head, in her POV, she is this righteous, dedicated mother that is doing good and trying to save everyone, essentially. But when we get her through Jon's POV, she's just this cruel, cruel woman. And I think that duality makes for such an interesting character because we see her from other people's perspectives and get to know her duality that, like, most characters in fiction don't have. So I'm not going to say best ever written, but I'm going to say high tier for sure. Cersei Lannister, God. Her POV goes insanely hard, just because of, like, it's essentially like this like fight against prophecy, where she gets this prophecy as a childhood, and this was like pretty neglected in the show. We got that one flashback, but this is like the entire driving force behind her character in the books. She's given this prophecy as a child, and essentially, like, she's doing everything in her power to try to cancel out or negate this prophecy and make it not true. But it's one of those tragic situations. By doing so, every step she takes brings her closer to that very prophecy. Just so, I love that shit in fiction. I love it. So I'm going to say high tier. Chitaya? Is that one of Daenerys' handmaidens? I honestly cannot remember who this is. No, that's Irri G. I don't know who that is. Chet is someone in the Night's Watch. Can't remember who. Cleos Frey. Don't remember who that is. One of the asshole Freys, I assume. Cold Hands. Again, I talked about him before when I was talking about Benjen. Very interesting character. We just don't know anything about him, so mid-tier. Courtney Penrose. Is that... God, I can't remember who that is. Yeah, I can't remember who that is. Sorry. Cotter Pike. Can't remember what it is. Craster. Um, Terrible, horrible, wretched human being. But interesting that he's doing things that, like, he's doing very interesting things before he's killed. And I think we learn a lot about the what's really going on behind the wall through him. So he's very intriguing, but he's just such a dick. So I'm going to say mid-tier. Maester Cresson, very good character. So this is the in the prologues and epilogues, they have one-off POV characters that sort of contextualize the broader themes for that particular book by starting in and bookending it. I think that's a genius move from George, and it's something that I've actually implemented in my series that I'm writing. So I really like, and Game of Thrones obviously starts with the encounter with the White Walkers, but Crescent is the first POV where I'm like, holy shit, like this is a really good setup. Very interesting character, has a lot of failings, but also is trying to do good, and I love characters like that. So honestly, for as little as he appears in the story, I'm going high tier. Sorry. Daario Naharis. I hate Daario. He just is like the exact kind of person I don't like in reality, and it just mirrors in the books. I just don't like Daario. So I'm gonna say incredibly written shit tier. It's our first incredibly written shit tier just because I hate him, but I also know he's designed to be hated by people like me, I guess. So it is very well written. Okay, here we go. Daenerys Targaryen is in my top 5 fictional characters ever written. And this is going purely by the books, in which she does not, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen, but she has not had a descent into villainy like she did in the show. So she's still very good, and the way she serves as this huge portal into one half of the fantastical side of the series, while Bran serves as the portal into the other half, but also being perhaps the primary anchor of the political side of the series, is just incredibly well done. And her backstory is just one of the most heartbreaking and intriguing backstories in all of the series, and there's so much mystery there. God, she's just the best character. She's so fucking good. She is my favorite character in the books, but she is not my favorite character in the show, obviously. But definitely my favorite character in the books. Top 5 characters ever written. Best in all fiction, 100%. I mean, if you've read the books or watched the show, you all know Daenerys. Dagmar Cleftjaw. Oh my god, why am I blanking on who this is? Fuck. I'm doing bad with these side characters. Darion, don't remember. Davos, wonderful character. Another morally complex character. I love that he got made a POPV. I believe, was he a POV in A Clash of Kings, or did he start in the story? No, he was in Clash of Kings, I think he was. No, yeah, just love his POV. It's always great. He's sort of like, there's these two forces manipulating Stannis, drawing him one way or the other. I think Jon is kind of entering the fray as a third force, but I would really say it's sort of like Davos pulling Stannis in one direction and Melisandre pulling Stannis in the other direction. And Davos is supposed to be the morally good, and Melisandre is supposed to be the morally evil. But the thing is, both of them have such complexity and duality to their behaviors and personality that it makes it is one side really good, one side really bad, and it's like Stannis is getting torn between these two voices, yet is any of them really the right choice? I'm putting Davos in high tier. Very well written. Dennis Mallister, no idea. Dick Crab, let's go! This character is kind of a meme in the fandom. He is shit tier, but I don't know, I'm gonna say poorly written shit tier. He's just a fucking dick joke. But he talks about squishers, which is very interesting. Donal Noy, I have no idea. Danella Hornwood. Ooh, that might be the woman. Am I confusing Barbary Dustin and Danella Hornwood? I might be. I'll put her wherever I put Barbary Dustin, just to be, yeah, I'll put her right next to it, because I can't remember which one is which, I'm sorry. Dantos, kind of a chodge, if you know what I'm saying. He's just a dumbass, but, you know, he has kind of a decent heart. Low tier. Doran Martell, such an interesting character. The show did him no service, but in the books he is such an interesting character. He has this whole grand political scheme going on behind the scenes, like a 20-year master plan that he's been like sort of etching out slowly over time, and people get impatient with him and take actions that like sort of attempt to fuck up his plan, but he's always on top of it, and he's always like, you know, like, be patient with me. There's a bigger picture going on in here. Don't rush things. And I love that calculation and patience. It is going to be his downfall. How slow he takes to your political machinations is going to be his failure as a character. However, I think he's just a fascinating character. I'm putting him in high tier. Also, just the fact that he's so on top of things, and like, despite having incredibly poor health at this point in the series, is like super cool. I also really like that we don't get him as a POV character, because he's one of those characters like Varys and Littlefinger, and where it would like ruin the series if he was a POV character, because it would like spoil everything. Well, knowing what's going on in his head is like half the spoiler, you know. Dorea, no idea. Drogon, dragons. Dragons, I'm not ranking. They're dragons. Eddard Stark, Ned Stark, who you think is going to be the protagonist of the series. And of course we get the bait and switch in the first book. Very high tier character here. I think he, like, I was comparing him to Barristan Selmy in a way, and I think it's a very apt comparison, but I think the issue with Eddard Stark is that he is so morally good and so dedicated to being morally good that he cannot save anyone or himself, because in this society that there is like, you need to be a little bit morally degenerate to affect any actual progress or action. And but I think that's what makes him such an interesting character, that even though he has a chance to like save things and save his family, he has to stick to his moral code. And I think that's why he's a high tier character, just because he's so interestingly written in that sense. And also he gives us a lot of the insight into Robert's Rebellion and a lot of the mystery surrounding Robert's Rebellion. So right there, Eddard Stark, high tier. And especially if he if Jon's story from the show is what's true in the books, which 100% I believe, then he's an even better character. Edison Tollett, is that guy from the show? Is this Dolores Ed? Might be. Mid-tier. Yeah, mid-tier. Just a pretty run-of-the-mill character. Kind of a filler character, to be honest, to take up space where needed. Oh my god, this video. Holy shit. It's going to be so long. I may have to divide this into 2 parts, but we'll see. Or I gotta go quicker. Edmure Tully. Low tier. Just annoying. Edric Dane. Is Edric Dane Darkstar? I can't remember. I think I have to put it in who. Edric Storm, interesting character. They kind of, in the show, they kind of like gave Gendry his character, which I think was a smart decision to sort of absorb that up for like the condensation purposes. But he's one of Robert's bastards that eventually gets taken in by Melisandre, who attempts to like sap his blood because she believes King's blood can outpower Stannis. But Davos helps him escape, which is technically treason against Stannis. So he's kind of more of a vehicle for the plot, though. He's not really a strong personality character, and so I'll give him low tier. Elia Martell, very interesting, another historical figure. If she was aware of the Song of Ice and Fire prophecy, and she was approved of Rhaegar's eloping with Lyanna Stark because of that. It makes her all the more interesting, but that's just theory and speculation, so mid-tier. Ellaria Sand, one of the Sand Snakes. I don't like the Sand Snakes. I think they serve a purpose in the story, but I just, not annoying to me, so I'm going to put low tier. Or is Ellaria Duran's wife? I can't remember. I'm rusty. Emmon Frey, I can't remember what is with the Frey characters. Euron Greyjoy. Please don't think of Euron Greyjoy in the show ever, because they have entirely different personalities and entirely different roles in the story. He's essentially a cuck for Cersei that just makes dick jokes in the show. In the books, he's this insane villain, like Machiavellian schemer that is like on a whole nother plane of existence. Like, everyone's playing these wars trying to win the throne, and he's just off kind of fucking shit up, like, you're all playing throne. I'm going to take down the Eldritch horrors that control this universe and become the new god. And it's just like such a big scale up from like where all the other characters' headspaces are at. And I think it's absolutely genius to throw him in there, like this absolute wild card that has no regard for humanity, and is just like, oh yeah, I'm going to become the next god. And it's wild. I also think that part of the reason Euron is the way he is, and there's a popular theory that I wholeheartedly agree with, is that he is one of the failed dreamers that Bloodraven tried to manipulate into becoming his servant before Bran. So we see, like, when Bran is falling, we see failed dreamers that have all been plunged by the spikes and have supposedly gone crazy, and it's a very popular theory that Euron is one of them. So I'm going to say high tier. Awesome character in the books. Galaza Galere, no fucking idea, I'm sorry. Galerin Tyrell, sorry. Gendry. Also a little bit of a plot vehicle, to be honest. I can't even remember where he's at in the story right now. Is he with Lady Stoneheart? I can't remember. Geraldine's Darkstar there. Okay. Gendry I'm going to put in low tier. I don't really have any fond thoughts about him. I'm going to rank Ghost right now, move Ghost to the bottom of the list, because I don't think he's rankable, because animals aren't rankable. In my opinion, Grey Wind's going down there too. Sorry, just getting some little cleaning in here. Okay, Geraldine Darkstar. It's interesting, because when I read A Feast for Crows for the first time, I totally did not absorb Darkstar as a character. I was who, it just kind of blended in as a background character to me. Maybe I just wasn't paying attention well enough to the Ariane chapters, but for some reason I was just I don't, and then everyone's talking about Darkstar and his machinations, and I'm just wait, this wasn't a background character? And so I have not reread A Feast for Crows in many years. So, actually, no. Feast for Crows is the only book of the series that I never reread. It is actually my least favorite book in the series, admittedly. So I rarely reread it when I want to do a Song of Ice and Fire rereads. But so I'm going to say who, just for the sake of I know who he is, but I just totally missed him for some reason. Jenna Lannister. Is that Lancel's mom? Cannot remember. Jerish Drinkwater, great name. Cannot remember who he is. Gilly, very interesting character. Also more of a plot device, I would say, to be quite honest, but also has some interesting things. It's great to see her come from beyond the wall and learn about what the world is like below the wall. So I think that's interesting. I'm gonna say mid tier though. I don't think she's anything too special. Gregor Clegane, fucked up monster, just terrible sociopathic entity in the story that just commits war crimes left and right and has absolutely no human empathy, is just a psychopath like an absolutely insane psychopath that is just allowed to go unchecked in this world because he serves a purpose for corrupt people. And it's like, we'll let you do whatever the fuck you want because it helps my cause if you do whatever the fuck you want. And he just destroys people's lives left and right because he's just such a menace. And just pretty much has no humanity. And I think it's a very interesting trope because, like, I mean, not trope, a very interesting plot point because, or theme. I'm losing my words here, God. Because I love the idea that he had very little humanity, was killed, and then brought back as a mindless soldier zombie for Cersei. And I love the idea that it's like, oh, you thought he had no humanity in his humanity. Wait till you see him when he's a zombie. And I think that's like a really cool thread by George. I'm going to put it in high tier. I think it's really cool that he exists in the story. Gren, don't know. Grey Worm, mid tier. I could take or leave Grey Worm, to be honest. Haldon Halfmaester, don't know. Harold Harding, don't know. Harry Strickland, he's like the head of the gold. I feel like this trio is probably all Golden Company people in A Dance with Dragons. Harry Strickland, I'm going to put in low tier. We just don't know anything about him, really. Harry Swift, don't remember what that is. The High Sparrow, very interesting character because, like... Sorry, I need to take a sip of my drink here. He hides under the guise of religious altruism, but is actually just a power-hungry, like, fascist. And I think it's kind of genius that George integrates a character like that into the story when he does. Because it's like you see Cersei trying to grab at ultimate power to try to avoid her prophecy, but then this figure comes in that's like, just fucks it all up out of nowhere, where he's like, oh, I'm a religious figure, and I've rallied, like, a ton of people that are, like, fanatics of the religion that you impose over the country, so I rally a ton of people, and they're, like, giving me a ton of power, and you're going to reinstate the Faith Militant for your issues, and I'm going to use that to sort of turn it against you, imprison you, and keep rising up. And it gets to the point where, like, by the end of A Feast for Crows and A Dance with Dragons, like, the High Sparrow is, like, probably the most powerful person in Westeros, so you just don't even realize it. He's kind of, like, made his way in there, and fascinating character for that reason. High tier. Hizdar, asshole, fucking dick. Hodor. If the show Hodor backstory is real, he'd probably be higher, but it hasn't been confirmed yet in the books. I think it's real, so I'm going to put him mid tier. Hoston Frey, can't remember what that is. Interesting. Hoster Tully, that's he's pretty much a corpse already by the time he's introduced in the story. Catelyn and Lysa's father, low tier, just because he doesn't really have any purpose. Hot Pie, filler character for Arya, low tier. Kyle Hunt, don't remember what that is. Illyrio. Illyrio is a fascinating character because he's another one of those like Machiavellian schemers behind the scenes where if you got an Illyrio POV, it would ruin the story. Where it's like you. But then again, I did say like it would ruin the story for him if there was a Melisandre POV, and then there was, and it didn't. So Illyrio is another one of those characters where it's like he's doing like fascinating shit behind the scenes, but like you really don't fully grasp it yet. Like he has this young Griff agenda, which in my interpretation is a Blackfyre agenda. I think either he or his deceased wife is a Blackfyre descendant, and I think he's trying to use Gungriff to secretly facilitate the next Blackfyre rebellion without anyone knowing. But then he's sponsoring Daenerys a bit, too. It's almost like he has, like, money in a bunch of pots just to see which one takes off. And I'm going to put him in high tier. Very interesting character. I'm spending way too much time on this. Ilyn Payne. So interesting because you only get him through Jaime's POV. I think you get him... Do you get him through Cersei as well? No, he's with Jaime in The Feast for Crows. Maybe Sansa you get him through? You get him through Sansa, I think, in A Clash of Kings. Ilyn Payne, very interesting character because he has been muted, so you don't know what he's saying. So the only clues you get are when he does this like clicking laugh thing, or when he like makes facial expressions, and I feel like that's an interesting character to have around. I'm gonna put in mid tier. Ares, one of Daenerys' handmaidens, filler characters. They essentially just spout lore and show us that Dany is bi. Jacqueline Bywater, don't know who that is. Jaime Lannister, okay. I think I'm going to make this 2 parts, and this is the part where I'm going to break. Because Jaime Lannister is either second or tied as my favorite character in the entire series and one of my favorite fictional characters of all time. Because when he's introduced in the story, he is the most despicable asshole. He's the ultimate, like, pretty boy Chad bully. And you just hate him. You just think he's such a dick. But then you get, like, his POV, and then you learn about what really happened in his past. And then you learn about what's going on in his head, and the tremendous guilt and the tremendous, like, pain he suffers, and, like, how he has to use this asshole persona as a front to keep himself, like... It's almost like everyone assumes he's a menace. So rather than arguing it and looking pathetic, he just, like, is like, oh yeah, I guess I am a menace. Like fuck you all. I am going to be the menace you say I am. When really, inside, he's not at all. He should be remembered as a hero. But because of the corruption and, like, failings of how Westerosi society works, he's hailed this menace villain. And I just think that's... he's so good. He's so fucking good. And his character arc, that was totally ruined in the show, by the way, where he's in this, like, terrible, toxic, abusive, codependent, incestuous relationship with his sister Cersei. And they just, like, make each other worse every time. They just, like, every time they fuck, every time they plan something together, they just make each other worse and worse people. And Cersei is, like, slowly doubling down on this, like, on this codependent, toxic relationship, and Jaime's slowly breaking off of it. And it's like this, it's gonna be this, like, very much big duality where, like, by the end of the story, Jaime could be fighting alongside Daenerys, possibly, you know, and going up against Cersei, or if Young Griff's in power by then, who knows? But yeah, it's like these two life trajectories that are slowly putting these two toxic, codependent people at odds with each other. But Jaime, one of the best characters in all of fiction, and that makes him best in all of fiction. Anyway, that's going to be it for part 1. I will continue this in part 2 when I have more energy. Goodbye.